And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Rasta Report here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on livinginblack.com. My name is Kedia Wadu, aka the Conscious Rasta. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live. We come at you from 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 noon Eastern time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 8 p.m. East African time. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Tuesday. It is the 3rd day of February 2026 in the Gregorian calendar, the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6266, according to the calendar of ancient Kemet, to which we realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, and on livinginblack.com. Not bad, not bad, not bad. I got everything in line today. I started yesterday putting it all together and getting more and more complicated around here on LIV Radio, getting the shows up and running, doing the best we can to do the best that we can do for you, because you deserve the best that we can do. I want to thank you all for joining in today. If you are listening to us on YouTube, if you're viewing us or on Rumble, on Facebook, you're listening to us on the TuneIn app, and there are other places where you can find us as well as the new website, the Conscious Rasta Press. We have the live stream up there as well. So, Aquaba, you have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, and livinginblack.com. If you can, do hit the like button wherever you're listening from and let us know that you appreciate what we're doing. Here's what we have for today's program. I am doing a series. This series is going to last 2 months. It's an African Hour Story series. It's based upon the analyses that I have written about for many, many years. Today we are on our second of this 2-month African Hour Story session. Podcast number 2 deals with 2 more of my books. This one, Population War, Report from the Frontline, and then later we're going to turn to Food is for Life. Food is for Life. And I'm really excited to bring these to you. Yesterday we did 2 books to inaugurate this 2-month series. The first one we did was The Great AIDS Swindle. And then we did Mind Control. Resistance is Possible. So we did as much of those books as we could get away with in a short period of time. So right now, let me tell you what's on today's podcast. We delve into 2 more of my books, Population War, Report from the Frontline, that warns that global elites are engineering demographic shifts to reduce certain populations while empowering others through policy, technology, and economics. It urges Africans and the diaspora to anticipate these trends, protect fertility, build strong families, and strategically position themselves for emerging power realignments. In the second part of our show today, Food is for Life. This presents nutrition as the foundation of health, arguing that food can either cause or prevent disease, and including cancer. It explains how whole, natural foods support healing, longevity, and vibrant living, urging readers to transform daily eating into a conscious life-affirming practice. Those are the programs we have on today. This is the Conscious Rasta Report broadcast, drawing on over 25 years of investigative reporting. We've cut through propaganda and misinformation to reconnect Pan-African diaspora communities with their heritage, health, and consciousness for educated African Americans, African British, and diaspora-born Africans ready to leverage acquired skills and resources. We illuminate pathways to collaboration, reclamation, and prosperity on the continent. Together, we transform fear into action and fragmentation into collective power. Let's go into the first book study for today. Population War. Report from the Frontline. And I'm going to go into, I've got several sections highlighted here. And this is a very, very good book. But I want to go into, it's a good book. I'm going to go into chapter entitled In Defense of Fertility. And of course, we begin with this quote: "It takes a village to raise a child, but it takes children to raise a village." That quote is from yours truly. We are challenged on the eve of the 21st century. This was published in 1996. Why should we be concerned over our and others' fertility? In the past 2 years, I have published several books related to fertility issues, including Another Loaded Needle, the SPF 66 malaria vaccine, and the conspiracy to decimate the population of Africa, and Population War on the eve of the 21st century, as well as numerous major research reports. 3 of these books, Africa's Death Sentence, Absolute Proof of the Vaccination Sterilization Conspiracy, and Before You Vaccinate, Investigate, contain extensive research sources that led to the conclusions therein. In addition, I compiled nearly 100 news stories leading up to, during, and immediately after the United Nations 1994 Cairo Conference on Population and Development in a collection which I entitled Population Control, Sterilization, and First World Resistance. The common themes running through all of these publications was investing the covert effort to control the world's burgeoning non-white populations, and therefore manipulate human resources that would pose a radically different distribution of world power at the end of the next century. In addition to the previously mentioned publications, I authored several essays from the Conscious Rasta perspectives relative to the topic, such as, quote, Africa's Death Sentence, unquote. Another, Who is Behind Global Depopulation? The Damned Needle, High-Tech Genocide, It's the 40-Ounce, Stupid, and the African American Woman's Health Crisis. Having thus obtained an extensive research background, not only on demographic issues, fertility, topics related to health, gender, eugenics, scientific racism, genocide, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, as well as the history of chemical and biological warfare, CBW. I write today to signal an alarm to the women of the world, in particular the African, South Asian, and Latin American women, whom I perceive to be the intended of this manipulation. The U.S. National Security Establishment, assisted by dozens of government agencies and non-governmental organizations, has instigated a policy by which the maximum number of non-white women are to become infertile within the next 3 decades. Now, this was written in 1996. So 3 decades would put us at, that would put us at this year. This book came out 30 years ago. Analyzing the published literature. To confirm this bold allegation, I quote from a few of the hundreds of pages of research documents I possess that have led me to this conclusion. My first reference is entitled Social Cleansing, written by Alexander Coburn, appeared in the New Statesman and Society, August 5, 1994. He writes, quote, up to 1974, Nazi Germany, now, writes Alexander Coburn, the eugenicist crusade against the poor is back. Between 1907 and 1960, some 60,000 were involuntarily sterilized, according to Philip Riley's The Surgical Solution. A Florida bill also failing this spring, though it may soon reappear, offered $200 annually for contraceptive use by women who receive AFDC or are below 125% of the poverty line. It also provided a $600 bonus for sterilization to men below 125% of the poverty line. To achieve a 94 birth reduction, the New Jersey cut off welfare to 458 newborn babies. On this perverted logic, 5 children starve, so 1 might not be born. An Illinois woman is accusing Wyeth Ayerhurst, the company that markets Norplant in the United States, of negligence for failing to warn women that removing the implant can be painful and difficult. She also claims to have suffered side effects including bleeding, nausea, weight gain, and severe headaches. The plaintiff's attorney, Jewel Klein, has filed a class action suit in Cook County Circuit Court, Chicago, and that suit was successful. I say greetings to you. I see you in the house, Brother Joshua K.M. Power. Great to have you here. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And let me double check over here for Africa One. I see you bright and early, beloved. Hotep, Brother Keedy, and global LIB family. Next, evidence I cite in my book, I had thousands and thousands of pages on this, is the essay on the principle of population, written by Thomas Parsons Malthus, professor of political economy, writing in 1798. Quote, we should facilitate instead of foolishly and vainly attempting to impede the operations of nature in producing this mortality. And if we dread the too frequent visitation of the horrid form of famine, we should seditiously encourage other forms of destruction which we compel nature to use. Instead of recommending cleanliness to the poor, we should encourage contrary habits. Sounds kind of like the rap and hip hop game, doesn't it? Instead of encouraging good habits, they are encouraging the worst habits. Instead of, let me reread that. Instead of recommending cleanliness to the poor, we should encourage contrary habits. But above all, we should reprobate specific remedies for ravaging diseases, and those benevolent but much mistaken men who have thought that they were doing a service to mankind by projecting schemes for the total extirpation of a particular disease. Next, I'm in the next reference, the Old War. This appeared in the Futurist magazine, April 1993 edition. Quote, Europe is now experiencing the lowest ever fertility levels and the longest period in which fertility has remained at or below replacement levels. Declines have already been recorded in Denmark, Germany, and Hungary, and are expected to begin appearing in Austria, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Sweden by the beginning of the next century, as well as in other industrialized countries whose populations are predominantly European origin. This trend generates a host of fears of, for example, labor shortages and wage inflation, weakened national defenses, shortages of intellect, declines in national, quote, vigor, race, suicide, and the disappearance of European culture. I'm going to cite more evidence. I got a lot of it. Article entitled A Century of War. This is a book, actually, A Century of War. Anglo-American Oil, Politics, and the New World Order, from Executive Intelligence Review. 1992. On April 24th, 1974, Henry Kissinger issued National Security Council Study Memorandum 200, NSSM 200. And I must say that the woman who found that through a FOIA research was actually my dear friend and the one who really became my primary instructor in the early 2000s when I was a member of the website Global 2000. No, it wasn't Global 2000. It was Africa 2000. What was it? Oh, it's been a long time. The website's been gone for some time. But she, Elizabeth Liagansobo, was my primary jigna. So Henry Kissinger issued NSSM 200 on the subject of, quote, implications of worldwide population growth for U.S. security and overseas interests. It was directed to all cabinet secretaries, the military, joint chiefs of staff, along with the CIA and other key agencies. And it's also the previous chapter. I do have that book. I'm referencing that in the previous chapter. But let's go forward. On October 16, 1975, at Kissinger's urging, President Gerald Ford issued a memorandum confirming the need for U.S. leadership in world population matters, based upon the contents of the classified NSSM 200 document. For the first time in American history, the document espoused Malthusianism as an explicitly desirable aim of the security policy of the government of the United States. More bitterly ironic was the fact that it was initiated by a German-born Jew. Even during the years of the Nazi regime in Germany, government officials had greater inhibitions against officially espousing such policies. Now, I am going to go into that document for just a little bit. And there's more to this chapter. I keep citing document after document after document, but this becomes very, very important. And I'm going to go to page 20 of the book. We talk about an IPFA Information Project for Africa. That was our website. That was a company that the research group that I joined, and I was a major contributor to. But they talked about the problems, strategic implications of an aging population in developed nations, including point, a shrinking labor force, 2, plummeting populations among the most productive segment of societies, 3, migration from nations with expanding populations toward those countries inhabited by diminishing numbers of people, 4, projected difficulties in access to strategic resources, and 5, political instability linked to the demands of increased numbers in developed nations. Next, another document frequently referred to in Information Project for Africa Publications is a study memorandum commissioned by the U.S. National Security Council under President Richard Nixon, upon completion, then delivered to then President Gerald Ford at the direction of Henry Kissinger. The document, entitled National Security Study Memorandum 200, NSSM 200, The Implications of Worldwide Population Growth for the U.S. Security and Overseas Interests. It instigated a series of studies to determine the effects of rapid demographic changes and sought to predict challenges which these transformations would pose to long-term strategic interests of the U.S. Among the numerous changes which NSSM 200 sought to forecast were those such as: point 1, the long-term impacts of world population changes, at least until the year 2000. Point 2, trade problems the U.S. may face which stem from future competition for resources. We can see those are seriously affecting this country now with China. Point 3, strategies for focusing, quote, international attention on the population problem, unquote, in order to facilitate U.S., quote, assistance in the population field. And point 4, the consideration of population growth in political and economic terms, as opposed to strictly social or ecological concerns. This is very important. Among the key findings of NSSM 200 was identifying 13 countries whose population growth posed, quote, a growing political and strategic role, unquote, vis-a-vis the United States in the coming decades. Listed on page 15 of the document, the targeted countries were Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, Indonesia, Pakistan, Brazil, the Philippines, Bangladesh, Mexico, Colombia, India, Turkey, and Thailand. Keeping these in mind, one might consider the often turbulent political and social developments in these countries and deduce some relevance to this NSC concern. To illustrate further, the Information Project for Africa established a website that presented information relative to the subjects discussed herein. Although the IPFA website no longer exists, decades later, computer users can connect with numerous web portals to confirm the existence of multiple documents relating to population and U.S. national security policies, in addition to in-depth analyses on so many of the individual subjects included in this body of research that I am presenting. And then I go into a chapter called Birth Control, Confused by, quote, reproductive freedom, unquote. Reproductive freedom, I contend, is a propaganda distortion, a lie. I'm going to read one more document. Whew, man, I've got a lot of these. I will give you a couple of headlines. This headline: for some, Norplant is a mandatory miracle. This was written by Harriet Washington, author of a number of different books later. After this, Medical Apartheid, one of my favorite books from her. She wrote this in Emerge magazine in September 1994. The efficient and convenient contraceptive Norplant threatens to become the soma of our times. It works well, but for many black women and teenagers, the constitutional right to choose is illusory. Chief among Norplant's medical disadvantages are irregular bleeding, acne, and headaches. It's also expensive to insert and to remove, and dangerous for people with certain chronic diseases such as diabetes and hypertension, which affects black people disproportionately. And the implants do nothing to protect against STDs. Our main concern is that Norplant has not been tested on teenagers in clinical trials. These girls are basically guinea pigs. We don't know its effects on adolescent bodies. It's almost like Norplant is still in clinical trials. We'll hear more about it in 20 years. We're also hearing about a lot of women who can't get Norplant removed on demand. If they ask to have it removed after 28 days of continuous bleeding, they're told, be patient. Just a few more of these headlines, and then we're going to summarize the book. The next headline, GAO. This is a government research document. GAO. 500,000 used in experiments by government. Written by Karen McPherson. This appeared in the Long Beach Press Telegram, September 29, 1994. At least 500,000 people were used as subjects in Cold War era radiation, biological, and chemical experiments sponsored by the federal government, a congressional agency said Wednesday. The General Accounting Office, GAO, in its first major overview of all defense-related human experiments, told a House subcommittee that the tests conducted from 1940 through 1974 ranged from radiation to biological and chemical agents like mustard gas and LSD. Skipping forward, real U.S. policy in the third world, sterilization. Written again by Alexander Coburn in the Los Angeles Times, September 8, 1994. Disregard the empowerment shoe polish. The goal is to keep the natives from breeding. As revealed in an internal U.S. Agency for International Development report, the fundamental goal of the American government is to keep the natives from breeding. The June 1993 document unearthed by the Washington-based newsletter Counterpunch, of which this writer is co-editor, states policy targets, quote unquote, for Haiti boldly to obtain 200,000 new acceptors of contraception, a social marketing component target of 6,000 cycles of pills a month, and the establishment of 23 facilities to provide sterilizations, soothingly referred to as, quote, voluntary surgical contraception, a goal that has been exceeded. There's no mention of any targets with regard to women's health. Local clinics offer food and money to encourage sterilization. Acceptors were promised that vasectomies were not only reversible, but would help prevent AIDS. Women were offered clothing in exchange for agreeing to use Norplant in the 5-year contraceptive implant. Norplant, the 5-year contraceptive implant, which led to a host of problems, including constant bleeding, headaches, dizziness, nausea, radical weight loss, depression, and fatigue. Skipping forward. Next, title, Eugenics Nuts Would Have Loved Norplant. Written again by Alexander Coburn, just a couple of sentences. Los Angeles Times, June 30, 1994. The coercion of women on welfare to avoid childbearing smells of a 1930s social cleansing. Before Hitler and his fellow Nazis, who said they learned much from U.S. sterilization laws, made the discipline unfashionable, eugenics and the prevention of socially unworthy babies were hot topics among American social engineers. I have been reading this stuff, studying this stuff for 30 plus years. This book comes out 30 years ago. You wonder why I do what I do. There is a quiet rage, a quiet screaming inside. It compels me to move. It compels me to do the best I can to convince as many of you to move. It perplexes me, it really does, that it's so difficult to get adults, to get grown, literate adults to acknowledge what's going on. We're all hurt by these practices. I quit cussing many years ago, but I am very, very tempted right now to launch into a tirade using F bombs and S bombs and P bombs and whatever. The only thing I can say, this is outrageous. This is absolutely, positively outrageous. So I'm going to conclude this. There's a couple more headlines. Just a little demographic projection: 48 million in the state by 2020. That's for California. Headline: Italians' baby boom goes bust. Written by William Montalbano, appeared in the Los Angeles Times, June 1994. In Japan, you spell birth control CONDOM. By Teresa Watanabe, Los Angeles Times, August 23, 1994. And this is a book that's in my collection. I hope you have it as well. The Birth Dearth. What happens when people in free, meaning white, countries don't have enough babies? Written by Ben Wattenberg. I'm going to read this description. Pharaoh Books, 1987. Here is a list of factors discussed that tend to depress fertility. Quote: urbanization, more education, more income, more working women, more abortion due to legalization, better contraceptive techniques, delayed marriage, delay of birth of first child, more divorce, increased infertility, increased spinsterhood, more open homosexuality, more open lesbianism, more, quote, living together, women's liberation, the perceived high costs of children, and environmentalism. Thank you, Ben Wattenberg. I'm no big fan of him. He's a Jewish right-wing white ideologue. I'm not fond of him at all. But thank you, Ben Wattenberg, for writing that book, The Birth Dearth. I got to say thank you. As a researchers, from a research point of view and interest, it was a fascinating book. I encourage everyone else to read it too. The next one, headline: Assault on the Male Probes Mutations. Los Angeles Times, September 3rd, 1994, written by, this is a documentary film. The writer-producer Deborah Cadbury's film is an extremely important document on how scientists have discovered a partial cause for sex mutations and declining sperm counts in male humans and animals. A key detective here is Dr. Richard Sharp of Edinburgh's Reproductive Biology Unit. His studies in recent years on young male sex deformities, testicular cancer alone, he notes, has tripled in the United States and England in 30 years, brought him into contact with Copenhagen University Hospital professor Niels Skakebak, who had accidentally discovered a disturbing 50-year trend in declining human sperm counts. Sharp found that the crucial cell in sperm production was the Sertoli cell, which can be degenerated by estrogen in the environment, estrogen mimicking chemicals. I conclude this chapter. I wish I could continue at length with quotations from the thousands of pages of documents that I have accumulated on these issues, including fertility, population growth, the theory of competitive reproduction, quote unquote, gender ambiguity, sex mutations, biological connections to homosexuality, HIV/AIDS, the National Security Agency's secret eugenics protocols, NSSM 200, NSDM 31 forward, NSDM 314, not forward, NSDM 314, National Security Decision Memorandum 76, NSCS 46, among others. And other schemes aimed at the prevention of rapid changing demographics, changes that will shift power toward the Southern Hemisphere during the next century. African Americans, along with other fertile people of color on planet Earth, and progressive-minded allies of every ethnic background, should not underestimate the degree to which racist governments are prepared to act to control the fertility of non-white women. What about solutions? The first step is to raise our collective consciousness to factors that have led to the conflict. There already exists a cadre of well-informed researchers, demographers, and lecturers, of which I am merely one, among a powerful peer group on the West Coast, that must make the lecture rounds and speak to young and old alike about the necessity to defend and develop our community's fertile youth actively. The transformation will require sisterhood groups to unify toward teaching themselves and younger sisters about the dangerous side effects of chemical birth control and the negative consequences of freakish behavior and the abuse of their sexuality. So I go forward. Update 1999. This article is about the decision by the Wyeth Ayerhurst to settle lawsuit claims filed by more than 36,000 American women concerning the use of the Norplant contraceptive implant system. The settlement, estimated at $50 million, within 5 years of Norplant litigation. Women of childbearing age need to study traditional methods of natural fertility control and diet and lifestyle changes that will assure a greater possibility that they will remain viable until they have decided that their childbearing years are over. Young men today need to be mentored, Jagna, by their older brothers about the spiritual aspect of procreation so that they can resist the damaging effects of destructive behaviors that are largely the result of media mind control and psychological warfare operations, PSYOPs, in military jargon. And it goes on and on. My solutions take a few pages. The next chapter, I'm just going to read a few chapter heads. How to survive the population war. And that deals with a lot of those calls to actions. Turn back a devilish plot. I do refer to my book, In Defense of Fertility, the challenge to people of color on the eve of the 21st century. And in that lengthy treatise, I use excerpts from a few of the hundreds, perhaps thousands of pages of research I've accumulated which focus on the following controversial subjects: eugenics, social cleansing through restrictive reproduction policies, also described as, quote, race improvement through selective breeding, on Malthusianism, a bogus hypothesis that population growth would eventually outstrip sustenance without radical intervention through population control, a rising epidemic of low birth rate in nations of predominantly European extraction. Now the East Asians lead the world in the lowest fertilities ever measured in humans. The reoccurring U.S. national security directives meant to address the imbalance between low fertility in whites vis-a-vis that of, quote, people of color, non-whites whose total fertility rates average as much as 427% higher than that, or 427% that of whites, comparing TFR across sub-Saharan Africa versus Europe. The use of vaccinations, chemical substances such as levonorgestrel, and immune disorders as ethnic weapons in a global war against regions with higher population growth. The role of the U.S. government in covert human experimentation which includes exposing in excess of 500,000 U.S. citizens to biochemical warfare, toxins, radiation, mind control drugs, and sterilizing substances. Demographic changes in America that will produce a non-white majority population by the middle of the 21st century if unchecked. Unfortunately, it was checked. But we not done yet. So I should say Africans in America, we kind of neutralize ourselves. It's pretty bad. For Africa One, she writes, I've been dropping the F-bombs for you, brother. Can no one put these miserable mongrels out of their misery? Yeah. The F-bombs are going off in my head, and it's getting noisy in there too. What I've been saying to people is worse than we have been imagining. Far worse. This book is 30 years old. I was writing about this 30 years ago. I had thoroughly studied up on these topics myself. And I have been talking about these same topics, but in more sophisticated manners in 30 years. The book is not expensive. I went through and I changing my book prices. I'm adding $2 to my books that were only $10. And that's not a big increase. They originally were $5 when I first put them out, but that was 30 years ago. We can do as much as we can do. And last point, that sterilizing agents are being secreted into vaccinations. Yes, true. Drugs, yes. The ganja, yes. Soft drinks and alcoholic beverages marketed towards specific ethnic groups. And I have a chapter in here called It's the 40 Ounce, Stupid. Let me quickly go to that chapter. It's the 40 Ounce, Stupid. Instinctively, we knew something was wrong. For years, there have been largely unsubstantiated allegations circulating within the African black community about those notorious 40-ounce malt liquors as a deliberate chemical warfare attack against our people, particularly young brothers. We are well aware of the damage being done by young and not so young black men stoned on a 40-ounce or some other devilish potion with a handgun, knife, stick, or a brick, and set upon his own community with an attitude that the life of his brother African ain't worth much. The mainstream media has been quick to dismiss allegations that the 40-ounce was a supercharged killer brew and a badness booster that was further fueling this mayhem. An example of this was an ABC 2020 television program which clearly demonstrated certain problems that resulted from the marketing of high alcohol content malt liquors. One of the main points of the program was that inner city liquor stores, the frequency which is provocative itself, were selling the 40-ounce to underage purchasers, etc., etc. Let me cite my evidence. Don't want to sweat the details, go through the following bullet points. Number one, for those who don't like to sweat the details, this evidence seeks to address the following points about malt liquors. Point one, the ingredients kept secret are intended to produce a maximum physiological effect. Point two, the particular level of alcohol content within malt liquor aggravates chronic health problems that disproportionately affect blacks compared to the general society. Point three, well-deliberated marketing strategies target blacks and other ethnic minorities. Point four, this can be shown to cause sperm-related fertility problems and genetic birth defects. And point five, they have been acknowledged and in published reports as an ideal vector for the administration of chemical warfare and mind control agents. And point six, 40-ounce malt liquors are packaged to produce a maximum of bang for the buck and promoted as such. The evidence, just the headlines. Brewing up problems. The health effects of social drinking. From USA Today magazine, October 1991. Point. Next headline. Malt liquor shows more muscle despite weak ad support. From Advertising Age magazine, May 1992. Point. Headline. Chuck D files suit against beer marketer. That's from Rolling Stone, October 3rd, 1991. Point. Male rats find alcohol a fertility downer. From Science News, July 1994. Point. Cameroon, vaccination and politics. This is from May 6, 1992, from the British medical journal, The Lancet. Point. Botha's sinister plan against Africans revealed. I'm going to read this one. The Challenger, Buffalo Challenger, November 5, 1986. On August 18, 1985, a speech made by South African President P. W. Botha to his cabinet appeared in the Sunday Times, a South African newspaper. In an article written by David G. Milieu, among literally dozens of shocking racist and genocidal proposals made by the apartheid leader was the following excerpts. The food supply should be used. The food channel should be used. Food supply channel should be used. We have developed excellent slow-killing poisons and fertility destroyers. Our only fear is in case such stuff came into the blacks' hands, as they are bound to start using it against us. If you care to think of the many blacks working for us in our domestic quarters. My scientists have come up with a drug that could be smuggled into their brews to effect slow poisoning, results, and fertility destruction. Working through drinks and the manufacturing of soft drinks geared to the blacks could promote the channels of reducing their population. Couple more headlines. Next, U.S. keeps us in the dark about beer. Long Beach Press Telegram, November 11, 1994. Headline, Hip Hop versus Ma'at, a psychological analysis of values, written by Jawanza Kunjufu, African American Images Press, 1993. And lastly, conclusion. Anyone with a familiarity of the conscious Rasta Press knows that I am pessimistic about the continuing relationship between oppressed groups within America and the government corporate media milieu. Based upon the research I have done, the Killer 40 is a tool and a covert scheme to control segments of the American population that threaten the current power status. I'm going to skip it. We're going to go into the next book. This book, I really, really enjoy this book. This book became for me a point of embarkation. This was the first real in-depth book that I wrote about nutrition. And now I have become not only a clinical nutritionist, but I will soon travel to Ghana and be given an honorary doctorate. Because of my nutrition work. 1 second. Let me clear my throat. Here we go. I'm going to go into the book. First, let me read from the back cover. Food is for life. We all wish for ourselves the blessings of great health, intelligence, and the blessings of eternal youth. The path toward nutritional excellence requires attention and discipline. Profit-motivated corporations are increasingly underhanded in their marketing attempts to convince us that their products alone can satisfy desires for strength, wisdom, and sexual vitality. Within Western cultures, we have been acculturated toward the quick fix. Many would prefer to pop a pill, drink a potion, or smear on some cream which might quickly change our reality. Yet we can see that such claims usually fall far short. The road to supreme health and wellness is not a tortured path, yet it does require focus, consistency, and a passionate commitment. I hope to assist you along that transforming pathway. This journey to holistic well-being requires that we take firm steps, one after another, until we have sufficient momentum to maintain a steady course. We find that the pursuit of optimal health is enjoyable and rewarding. I trust that you will find that this research is compelling. Understanding the science is rewarding and helps to overcome some of the most destructive patterns that affect our communities. When we change our habits and begin to treat every meal as either a healing session or a, quote, dance with the devil, unquote, then we determine how we feel and function during our middle and latter stages of life. Will you be robbed of some of your most productive years because of poor health from chronic diseases, or will you grow old gracefully? This question must be answered by us individually as well as for our children. Today and every day of our lives, food is for life. Now, I've got a couple of excerpts from the book. I'm going to go right to the book. It's small in size, but it's got a lot of very valuable information. This is the book cover. Food is for life. Very important. Chapter 3, sexual dysfunction and infertility. This ties right into the previous book that I just read. A crisis of the developed world. In recent decades, scientific research has raised an alarm over growing evidence that widespread use of industrial chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and household chemicals has created serious reproductive problems within the industrialized nations. Chief among these reproductive problems include, and we just covered, European studies indicate a nearly 50% drop in average sperm count among men in industrialized countries, falling from an average of 122 million cells per milliliter to 66 million cells per milliliter, along with a 19% drop in semen volume. Whew! And this is all happening up to 1996 when this book was published. Point 2, a rise in testicular cancer in developed countries, increasing approximately 300% in the past 3 decades. Links between exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, to epidemics of endometriosis, breast, uterine, and cervical cancers within women of the industrialized nations. High rates of gender mutation among animals, birds, and fish found in areas with high concentrations of EDCs, especially in Lake Apopka, Florida, the Great Lakes region, and the Columbia River. And alarming numbers of babies within the developed countries showing evidence of reproductive malfunction, such as undescended testicles, hermaphroditic genital formations, crossed male-female DNA, and sexual organs, as well as sexual neurological malfunction. All evidence supporting a biophysical basis for homosexuality. The unprecedented decline in fertility among women and men in the countries where exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals is greatest. And last point, an explosive growth in the industry of in vitro fertilization, test tube conception methods, artificial insemination, surrogate parenting, and other substitutes for natural, unimpeded parenting. Food contaminants inhibit reproduction. Without a doubt, the major studies by which these destructive EDCs are entering our bodies is through an increasingly contaminated food chain. A food delivery system that is an evolutionary recent development. Agricultural chemicals are suspected to be the chief source of chemically induced reproductive disorders. The suspect family of chemicals, endocrine disruptors, have become so widely used that we're virtually surrounded by, quote, a sea of estrogens and estrogenic chemicals, unquote. This is at the heart of this epidemic of infertility. It cannot be overemphasized that the chief source of EDCs in the food chain is agricultural chemicals. These include dozens of pesticides, the number of which will likely increase many-fold as better designed research studies turn the page, into the long-term effects of pesticide combinations are conducted. Numerous herbicides, synthetic hormones, such as bovine growth hormone, BGH or BST, and naturally occurring animal hormones, all of which have permeated the animal protein-based, chemically saturated Western diet. In addition, polychlorinated biphenols, PCBs, which are widely used in food packaging and water bottles, is also known to be an endocrine disrupting chemical, which leaches into the products that this packaging contains. What becomes even more troubling, tiny traces of these pollutants may not demonstrate direct deleterious effects, but can become devastating when in combination with trace amounts of other endocrine disruptors. The fact that these are affecting us singly, but in combination, it gets even worse. I see you in the house today, Brother Eddie McCrory. Great to have you in the house. And I hope that you, in listening to today's program, come on, let's catch up. I'm reading from research from 30 years ago. 30 years, 3 decades. My new book comes out today. In fact, I just got a note. It is out now on one of the formats, Kindle. It will be out within the next 24 hours in print as well as an audio book. So I do encourage all of us, let's get armed, get geared. This is obviously how I make my living. And all of us want to do better than we did last year. Last year was a disaster. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you. The books are very inexpensive, just less than the cost of 2 fast food meals. Fast food meal for 2 or for 1 hungry person. Because I eat a lot, so I cannot mess with fast food. But let's get together. Let's all arm ourselves with each back issue of these books. This one is entitled Food for Life. I'm going to continue reading. In fact, recent research into the endocrine disrupting effect of chemical pollutants has indicated that combining pesticides has shown to increase estrogenic potency from 160 to 1600 fold. Tulane University endocrinologist John A. McClellan claimed in a LA Times article June 7, 1996, quote, instead of 1 + 1 equaling 2, we found that 1 + 1 equals 1,000 fold. Instead of 1 + 1 equaling 2, we found that 1 + 1 equals 1,000 fold. We expected interactions, but we were surprised they were so strong. His research on polychlorinated biphenols, PCBs, showed the same synergistic effect, increasing estrogen potency from 5 to 7 times when two PCBs were combined. It is believed that there are about 209 different polychlorinated biphenyls in use. Foods known to be particularly loaded with endocrine disrupting chemicals include grapes, apples, strawberries, bottled and tap water, especially groundwater from agricultural regions, dairy products, animal fats, and vegetables, upon which the highest amounts of agricultural chemicals, pesticides and herbicides, hormones, and steroids are used. Obesity has been undeniably linked to birth defects, notably neural tube defects such as spina bifida and encephalopathy, where a baby is born missing portions of the brain. Other dietary links to birth defects include diabetes and folic acid deficiencies, vitamin B12. Key to this obesity connection is the way obesity interrupts nutrient absorption in the stomach, thus making it difficult for the body to obtain key vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and enzymes, which are necessary for proper metabolism. Thus, we must recognize that pregnant women need to have a strict nutritional regime and avoid the trap of irrational cravings during pregnancy for high sugar junk foods, which is merely silly mythology. Chapter 4, entitled Other Diet Disease Connections. Common ailments with common causes. I make no pretense that this book can cover the entire spectrum of disorders and diseases for which food solutions could handily work. I've been continuing to write over the decades on this. There's 60 books now, 61 books. Yet, because there are so many ailments with chronic inflammation as their root cause, a little bit of really good advice can go a long way toward prevention. By settling upon an anti-inflammation nutritional lifestyle, one can assure themselves that they will experience much better health than is average within this society. Let's look at a few of these common ailments for which nutritional strategies can have a huge positive impact. I was writing this in 1996. Number 1, arthritis. The CDC reported in June 1996 that adults might be able to reduce their risk of arthritis by controlling their weight. Men who are overweight, they wrote, and I quote, or underweight, are more likely to suffer than adults of normal weight. Obese women are at risk, but underweight women apparently aren't. This was reported in the LA Times, June 12, 1996. Point: hypertension. This is a disorder which affects an estimated 23% of the U.S. population in 1996 and affects blacks at even greater numbers. Hypertension or high blood pressure is linked to other illnesses, worsening already bad conditions like heart attack, stroke, heart failure, kidney disease, and other problems. In nearly 90% of all cases, diet, food, supplementation, and nutritional modifications can control hypertension. Common symptoms of hypertension include morning headaches, ringing in the ears, unexplained dizziness, nosebleeds, depression, blurred vision, unprovoked tension, and fainting spells. Conditions which significantly affect the risk for developing hypertension include obesity and cholesterol, high blood pressure, along with the prescription of drugs used to control it. This is one of the key factors limiting our enjoyment of our senior years. In early 1995, scientific advisors to the FDA issued an alert on one type of blood pressure medication, nifedipine, one of a class of so-called calcium channel blockers, sold under the brand names of Aldilat and Procardia, which had been linked to a tripling of patient death rates and a 60% increased risk of heart attack. Blood pressure medications are associated with impotence among men on the drugs, a common side effect that negatively impacts the quality of life. Key dietary factors in overcoming or preventing hypertension are: point, controlling our consumption of salt; deeper intake of minerals including potassium, calcium, and magnesium; dietary fiber; plenty of omega-3 fatty acids, referred to in one article as, quote, nature's Teflon; avoiding bad fats and alcohol; and getting sufficient water intake. And then I go on and on to talk about immune deficiencies. And we do spend a little bit more time dealing with AIDS Exposed, which was an earlier book I put out on that topic. I've since taken that book out of, it's come out of circulation. Because the material in the excellent book, it was really useful, AIDS Exposed, ended up being included in the AIDS deception as well as busted the latex condom conspiracy. I see you in the house, Brother Shabaka. He says, greetings, Baba and LIB family. And always, it's a pleasure to have you in the house, Brother Shabaka. You are appreciated. I do see your name, Brother Eddie. Order your new book Sunday. How long would you guesstimate food and drink corporations have known they were putting toxic so-called foods on the market for human consumption? Well, this research goes back 30 years, and in 30 years, I have been actively exposing this. I was exposing this before 30 years, but let's just take it what we can show. How long have we known about these corporations? Have known it, and they go back, and this research that I just shared shows that it was 30 years before 1996 that this was all declining very, very fast. So we have at least 60 years, at least, the absolute least 60 years. So thing is Eddie, are people catching up with this today? Or is it going to take another 30 years for them to find out what you and I are learning about today? You and I and Shabaka and For Africa One and Brother Joshua K. Empower, what we are talking about today. Are people going to miss it? Because if it takes another 30 years for them to catch on, that's 90 years of the destruction, wholesale destruction. We're going to be decimated. We're going to be wiped out in 90 years. That's 4 birth generations. If you look at my research, we're going to talk about this a little bit later when we get into some of my latter books. When we look at my research on population growth from generation to generation, it takes 4 generations to wipe out a people. We are today some 20, from 1975, we are 41 years into this decline. It's 75. No, we're 50 years. 26 plus 30. We're 50 years from 1975, 2 years after Roe v. Wade, and our populations, I'm going to have to recalculate it, but we have been decimated. We've already lost probably in excess of approaching 45 million blacks in the U.S. are gone, are missing, and cannot be recovered. 45 million of us. In last century, 1937, it was predicted by demographers that we would take over America because of our rapid fertility growth. Now I am saying some 45 million of us are missing in action. Chapter 7, because we're talking about fighting food addiction and obesity. That's chapter 5, very important. But chapter 7 is probably what the book was written about. And I think it was the original subtitle of the book, chapter 7, Eat to Beat Cancer and Heart Disease. I began with this quote. I love to begin my chapters with a quote. This quote is actually from myself. As much as 2/3 of heart disease and cancer can be attributed to bad food habits. 2/3. Nutritionists recommend at least 5 servings of fruit and vegetables each day, yet only 10% of us do so. Key nutrients called antioxidants show great value for ridding the body of poisons which have been linked to cancer. Study the following information very carefully. It could very well save your life. So I first do a book review. The book is The Antioxidant Pocket Counter. Much of the information that I've compiled in this chapter is referenced from the Antioxidant Pocket Counter, a guide to the essential nutrients that help fight cancer and heart disease, written by Gail L. Becker, and Random House, published 1993. Antioxidants are substances found naturally in the body which react with foreign elements to neutralize their potential harmful effects. Specifically, antioxidants protect cells from damage caused by free radicals. Free radicals are highly reactive chemical substances that are produced during oxidation, the body's natural process for burning fuel for energy. Free radicals provide some beneficial functions, such as assisting germ-killing cells in fighting off certain types of bacteria. However, they are also caused by exposure to hazardous elements such as cigarette smoke, carcinogens, pollution, environmental toxins, exhaust fumes, radiation, excessive sunlight, and certain medications. Vitamins C, E, and beta-carotene have been noted for their antioxidant benefits, and as such have been shown to reduce the risk of cancer, heart disease, arthritis, cataracts, and conditions due to aging. And little did I know when I wrote this 30 years ago, when I examined her book, and let me get her name again, Gail Becker's book. Little did I know, this was in 1996, when the rate of cancer in the United States had been in 1900, it was 1 out of 24 Americans. In the year 2000, it was 1 out of 3. So in 1996, little did I know that the rate of cancer would continue to expand exponentially, so that today, by 2026, and this is based upon 2024 figures, 2 of every 5 people will be diagnosed with cancer during their lifetime. I'm not saying they will die of it, but they will be diagnosed. 2 of every 5 people diagnosed with cancer. I am intending to not be one of those 2 of every 5 people. So we're going to do the best we can to eat to beat cancer and heart disease. Number 2 and number 1 killers in America. Going forward, top sources. Oh, beta carotene. No, let me back it up. Vitamin C, E, and beta carotene have been noted for their antioxidant effects. Vitamin A is necessary for vision, reproduction, growth, and healthy hair, skin, and body tissues. Much of the vitamin A found in our bodies is obtained from foods high in beta carotene, which is converted into vitamin A, or vitamin A if you're in the UK. Beta carotene is found in yellow, orange colored fruits, eat the rainbow, and vegetables such as cantaloupe and carrots. And it is present in green leafy vegetables such as spinach. Beta-carotene has been shown to provide protective effects against certain forms of cancer, including lung, stomach, colon, prostate, and cervical cancer. It also benefits for protection against cataracts, immune disease, skin disorders, stroke, and heart disease. Top sources for beta-carotene are carrots, sweet potatoes, I love them, love them, love them, pumpkin, cantaloupe, leafy greens, spinach, kale, mustard greens, collard greens, Swiss chard, etc., winter squash, apricots, mangoes, persimmon, and broccoli. Vitamin C is useful for many bodily functions, including enhancing iron absorption, producing collagen for the skin integrity, wound healing, and stimulating the immune systems. It may also play a role in preventing heart disease, lowering blood pressure, causing levels of good cholesterol, and preventing the oxidation of, quote, raising levels of good cholesterol, and preventing oxidation of bad cholesterol. Vitamin C also aids in the prevention of certain forms of cancer, including oral, stomach, esophageal, pancreatic, lung, and rectal cancers. Top sources of vitamin C include melons, citrus fruits, peppers, leafy greens, strawberries, tropical fruits, papaya, kiwi, and mangoes. Sprouts, cruciferous vegetables including broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, and cabbage. Tomatoes, sweet potatoes, and berries. Vitamin E is believed to reduce the risk of stroke, heart disease, and degenerative disorders such as cataracts, cancer, including stomach, bladder, breast, colon, rectum, and lung cancers, and immune function disorders. Top sources of vitamin E are seeds, nuts, vegetable oils, mayonnaise, wheat germ, leafy greens, seafood, avocados, mangoes, whole grains, and cereals. Dietary fiber, a non-digestible part of plant cells, is considered significant toward reduction in the risk of certain types of cancer, particularly colon and rectal cancers, as well as lowering of blood cholesterol. Fiber adds bulk to the diet and speeds up the passage of food through the digestive system, shortening the time that cancer-causing agents from food would remain in the body. Top sources of fiber include dried legumes, beans, peas, and lentils, prunes, figs, apricots, whole grains, mangoes, pears, apples, Brussels sprouts, seeds, nuts, berries, drugs, fruits, potatoes, and cruciferous vegetables. The conscious Rasta recommended daily allowance for fiber should be over 50 grams a day. Remember, in East Africa, they average 70 plus grams of fiber, and they have very low incidence of heart disease and no colorectal disease. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, and cabbage, as well as carrots and onions, contain sulforaphane, which activates enzymes that protect against cancer. The most healthful foods can lose their nutritional value before they even reach your plate, because certain vitamins and minerals can be lost or destroyed during cooking. To reduce the nutrient loss of foods, you can use acids such as lemon juice or other citrus juices or vinegar to slow enzyme activity in fruits and vegetables, which can lead to the destruction of beta-carotene, vitamins C, E, and other vitamins. In addition, refrigerating or freezing foods slows destructive enzyme activity. Further, The longer foods are stored or cooked, the more vitamins they generally lose. That's very important. Then I go into the political of all this. Chapter 8 is entitled Food Wars for the 21st Century, the Population Control Conspiracy. So I do mention Henry Excuse me, I think I just muted myself. No sound here. Okay, it must have been recently happened. I accidentally hit a button. And I hate doing that. I'm going to have to go back and edit that out. It's so time consuming. I was up late last night, so I'm kind of going on partial sleep up till 2:30, getting the new book out and sending it out to the publisher. And I did get word that the Kindle ebook is now available. And so during the course of this morning, I'm hoping that, see, the problem becomes the cover. The cover is a lot of work. I have to synchronize the cover very closely, especially on these smaller books where the spine label, I have to make it readable, and I have to make it fit inside a very tight parameter. Otherwise, they keep sending it back. I keep correcting it, send it out, they send it back. It's a lot of work. Which is why I teach a course on book writing. If you go to consciousrastapress.com, and let me put this up here for our new listening audience, go to https conscious Rasta press.com and see all of these books. HTTPS, that's it. So it's a pleasure to have you in the house. If you're old, you've been here. If you're new, you've been here. You've been around for a while. You keep me alert. You keep me in sync. And we do a good job together. I'm so proud of you. And I'm going to put up something for many of you to watch. This is a slideshow. I'm not going to, do I have time to do this today? Real quickly. I'm going to go through, I just created this morning. It is a slide show. And I'm going to see if I can get this up real quick. It's called The Conscious. It's based upon my new book. Now, I don't want to do that. Just open it. Just open it. Don't mess with me. It wanted to give me an Acrobat, but it just paid for Acrobat yesterday. So my Acrobat is turned back on right now, but I cannot see it. Where is it? There it is. It's coming up. So I'm going to show you this invitation. Not invitation, this slideshow that I just completed. And you tell me what you think about this. There it is. Slideshow. Let's put that up on the screen. Share. Real quickly, share. I'm going to put this up on the screen. And here's something that I just very recently created. This I did just this morning, just before going on the air. So I'm just going through this for the first time myself. This deals with my new book, The Conscious Roots, Growth, Heritage, and the Biology of Being, a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science by Kitty-Opia Wadu. Begins with this quote from Marcus Garvey: "A people without a knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots." Marcus Mosiah Garvey. This presentation explores the convergence of Rastafari livity, epigenetic science, and African history. It provides a blueprint for holistic health and liberation, moving from the biological roots to the spiritual crown. This is the new book. The seed knows no soil. The seed knows the soil. And in reaching into the soil, and you see those are our ancestors. There's AI, our ancestral inheritance is down in that soil. The disconnected self versus the seed knows the conscious root, ancestral connections. Just real quickly, the temple within, we talk about our interwoven system, 37 trillion cells that make up our body, let alone 100 trillion of the passengers that come along with us through life. This is not a machine. This is an ecosystem. And this ecosystem is increasingly complex. You multiply the interaction among 37 trillion cells, the number goes off the charts. So we talk about in the book, the microbiome. We're never alone. The gut contains more genetic diversity than our own genome. We think with our microbiome via the gut-brain axis. We talk about the mitochondria, the fire within. These organelles are the biological manifestation of livity, vital life force. And the philosophy, the body is not a machine to be fixed, it is a temple to be tended. Cultivating the inner garden means diversity in diet and inputs to support the inner ecosystems. Rhythms of the earth. The ancient drum still beats. We can see the disruption of artificial light that from us staying up late at night watching TV combines with these computer screens in our face all day long. We have to get time away from them. The master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, is synchronized by light. We are children of light and dark. Now, this suprachiasmatic nucleus, we commonly know it as the pineal gland. The disruption, we call it the tyranny of artificial light. Blue light at night suppresses melatonin, the hormone of repair, leading to chronic disease. The Rasta reasoning, aligning with creation, we must prioritize morning sunlight and evening darkness to honor the biological laws Jah designed. The inheritance of pain, stress, trauma, and nervous system, we don't just feel them, it's inheritable. It goes into our DNA, epigenetic. We move from sympathetic to parasympathetic. With the parasympathetic, it's all about healing all of it, but we got to support it. Core insight, the body keeps the score. Stress is not just a feeling, it is a psychological state. The epigenetic trauma, the suffering of ancestors can place chemical markers on genes, passing down hypervigilance known as post-traumatic slave syndrome. We owe that description to Dr. Joy DeGruy. The remedy? We must actively cool down the system. Practices like breath work, exposure to the color green, and community connection are biological necessities to switch off the chronic alarm. Food as information, the ITAL Foundation. Nutrigenomics. Every bite is a conversation with your genes. The violence of processing creates confusion and inflammation. But enzymes, living foods, enzymes, biophotons, and phytonutrients turn on longevity genes. The ITAL standard. Food contains information that instructs cells to repair and thrive. The rainbow protocol. Eat the colors. The different colors, phytonutrients speak different languages to our cells. Eat the rainbow is biological strategy, not just aesthetics. Echoes of origin, reclaiming the gold within. To heal, we must remember. Historical connection, the first footprints from humanity and civilization began in Africa. The Nile Valley brilliance from Kemet, ancient Egypt, developed geometry, brain surgery, and astronomy millennia before Europeans emerged from the Dark Age. The griot, the jelly. The oral tradition is not primitive, but primitive, a sophisticated living archive verified by modern archaeology. The psychological impact of knowing your origin is the gold. You cannot internalize inferiority when you know you descend from the architects of civilization, so we crown us. We're no longer subjected to the Cronus man. We crown ourselves. The psychology of heritage, the lion mentality, dignity, standing in truth, the refusal to internalize shame, the courage, facing the, quote, lion's share of trouble without freezing, and sovereignty, bowing to no Babylon, psychological autonomy. The epigenetic shift, shifting from prey, which is shame and fear, to predator, the pride and power, changes our physiology, lowering cortisol and boosting immunity. Breaking the mental change, cognitive liberation. This is really what the book is all about. Breaking the mental change. Propaganda becomes truth through repetition and authority. We must actively unlearn narratives of inferiority. The weapon of language, colonial language, binds us. Examples given: primitive instead of primative, tribe. These are not liberated languages. Liberated language frees. Rastafari innovation, we use I and I to replace the separation with unity. We do not stand under, or submit. We overstand. We rise above and we master. As Bob Marley sang these words from Marcus Mosiah Garvey, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. The art of overstanding is higher thought. Linear thinking is fragmented. The circle is holistic and interconnected. The definition of overstanding is spiritual mastery. It is the integration of one, critical thinking, questioning the source; emotional thinking, thinking with the heart and the head; pattern recognition, seeing the web of cause and effect. The practice, study. Study deeply, study broadly, study my books and every other great book that has come before us and leads us to a common destination. Study deeply, not broadly. Move from passive reception to sovereign judgment. And last practice is silence and strategy. The cool blue. The problem, the weaponization of noise, constant disruption, social media, TikTok, short videos, all of this craziness going on. It is absolutely chaotic. We never really get a chance to utilize the space between all of this noise, this chaos that's going on, projected at us constantly, nonstop. You have to support what we call in the book the cool blue. Meditation, not just relaxation, but consciousness technology that changes gray matter density. Rest as resistance in a system profiteering from our exhaustion. Rest is a revolutionary act. The space in the silence, the space where strategy is born. Listen to the echoes. It's very important. Ubuntu, community as an organization. An organism, not organization, an organism. The core truth, Ubuntu, I am because we are. The individual is a fiction. We're nodes in the network. The organism metaphor, a community functions like a body. If the heart fails, the body dies. We cannot thrive in isolation. And the new structures we're going to use for all of this is the circle. It's democratic, shared space for reasoning, chosen family, expanding kingship beyond biology, and mutual aid, collective survival strategies. The evergreen legacy. We rise together. Our roots are biological wisdom, the temple, and rhythms. Our crown is our spiritual consciousness, overstanding, and community. The trunk, ancestral inheritance, and heritage, the gold lion mentality. The synthesis, we are biological beings with African roots and divine potential. We do not choose between science and spirit. We embody both. The conscious root grows deep. The crown reaches high. We rise together or not at all. So that's what I've been working on today, this morning. And that's why I'm teaching the course on Thursdays in AI. Because if you have been following along with this course, you would have learned how to create that. And I thought that was really really quite stunning. I was the first time I've just looked at it right now. There's another piece of video that I created today. I haven't even seen it yet. But we are moving toward a new destination. We're moving very rapidly. The months of February and March, I am combining 2 months to tell the African story. For Africa One, I see you. She said, did the seed pods look like Caucasians? I did notice a little something there, but I didn't see that. I'll go back and look at it again. She said, beautiful images, powerful text. And yeah, this is the book that you already have ordered. I'm expecting to hear back from the printer today on whether or not they approved of the final version of it. It did go out already as it is available in certain markets as an ebook, the Kindle book. And so that's probably a pretty good likelihood that they will like it. But again, the problem with the book is many times it's the cover doesn't fit. The cover has to fit. It takes me a long time. It took me hours yesterday to fit the cover inside the boundaries. And so I'm glad you appreciate that, beloved. And on that note, I want to thank you all for your being here today. I am because we are. And you know something? I am incredibly powerful because we are incredibly powerful. We are a great people. We truly, truly are a great, great people. And we should be proud of ourselves. Now, let me just do this right. I'm going to get this music up and going. On the right box, where you at? Behind that at, my daddy would say. And on this note, hey, I'm out of here. I got things to do. You got things to do. And we are going to have a great, great time. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are truly, truly living in black.com. Peace and prosperity. I'll see you tomorrow with the next couple of books in our series. The next 2 books are, there's the book Outrage, How Babies Were Used in the LA County Vaccine Experiment. But tomorrow, actually, we're not going to be covering Outrage. We're going to be covering 2 books. The books are Mau Mau, Kenya's Land and Freedom Struggle, and Prisons, the Lockdown of Blacks, America's Future. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.